Welcome to Pillowtime Lore. This is your soft corner of the night, a place where stories live like warm embers, glowing in the dark. Before we begin, take a moment to slow down. Let your body melt into whatever holds you, your bed, your chair, or that cozy blanket wrapped around your shoulders. Feel how the day begins to drift away, piece by piece, as if it never belonged to you in the first place. Outside your window, the night is calm. The world has quieted down, and the sky has dressed itself in stars. Imagine gentle snowflakes floating in the distance, each one falling without hurry, without noise, just a silent rhythm to remind you that everything is allowed to slow. And here, in this moment, so are you. The glow of a fireplace flickers softly nearby, its warmth wrapping around you like an embrace. The golden light catches on shelves of books, on soft pillows, on every little detail that makes a room feel like home. You breathe in, and the air feels gentle, safe, peaceful. You breathe out, and the weight of today slips further and further away. There is nothing you need to do right now. No expectation, no demand, only rest, only stillness, only the quiet anticipation of a story that will soon take you by the hand and guide you through places that exist just beyond the edge of dreams. So, let the rhythm of your breath carry you deeper into calm. With every inhale, feel your body fill with ease. With every exhale, imagine the clutter of the day dissolving like mist. You are free now, free to wander through the world of tales where time is slower, and every word is a lantern leading you further into comfort. This is Pillowtime Lore, and tonight, a story awaits you. Lena moved into the old apartment above the quiet city library, carrying a small suitcase and a heart full of curiosity. The building looked ordinary from the outside, with faded bricks and little flower pots on the windowsills, but inside, the hallways smelled faintly of old books and polished wood, and every creak of the floor made her feel like she had stepped into a place with stories waiting to be discovered. She unlocked her apartment door and stepped in. The room was small, but cozy, with a sunbeam falling perfectly on the wooden floor, making it feel warm and inviting. Lena set down her suitcase and looked around, imagining how she would decorate it. Maybe a few plants, a soft rug, and her favorite books stacked in neat little piles, even though she was excited about her new independence. A tiny flutter of nervousness lingered. She didn't know anyone in the building, and the quiet streets outside felt both peaceful and strangely empty. What if the neighbors were unfriendly, or the apartment too lonely? But she shook her head and smiled, deciding that new adventures always came with a little nervousness. After unpacking a few essentials, Lena wandered to the window and looked down at the library below. Its tall, dusty windows held rows of books, and she could hear faint whispers of pages turning and soft footsteps something about the place felt calm, like it had a heartbeat of its own. Lena sat on the windowsill and let herself imagine living here, discovering secrets hidden in the library, maybe meeting kind neighbors, and finding small adventures tucked into every corner. For the first time in a long while, she felt a gentle excitement bloom inside her, a quiet promise that this summer might be unlike any she had ever known. That first night, Lena was getting ready for bed when she heard it, a soft, almost gentle sound coming from the floor below. At first, she thought it was just the old building settling, but then she heard something more distinct, soft footsteps, moving slowly across the floor, followed by a low, murmured voice. It wasn't scary, not at all. It sounded like someone was reading aloud. Curiosity prickled inside her, and she quietly slipped on her slippers and tiptoed to the living room window. Peeking down into the library, the lights were dim, and she couldn't see anyone clearly, but the sound of words being spoken filled the quiet night. Lena's mind raced with questions. Who could be down there at this hour, and why would someone be reading so softly, unable to resist? She crept back to her apartment door and leaned carefully over the railing. Listening, the words were faint, but she could catch snippets of a story about a boy discovering a hidden garden and a secret world tucked behind familiar walls. Lena felt a small smile spread across her face. It was comforting, like the building itself was alive, whispering secrets just for her. She wanted to knock, to introduce herself, but something told her not to. This was someone else's quiet moment, a private world that she was lucky to hear. So she tiptoed back to her room, clutching her blanket, and sat on the windowsill, letting the soft voice drift around her. She felt a mix of excitement and calm, as if the building was slowly unfolding its mysteries and welcoming her in. That night, Lena didn't just fall asleep. She drifted into dreams, filled with footsteps and whispered stories, imagining the quiet library below and the gentle reader who would become her first mysterious friend in this old, cozy building. The next morning, Lena was carrying her small basket of groceries when she bumped gently into her neighbor in the hallway. An elderly lady with soft gray hair and warm eyes smiled at her and introduced herself as Mrs. Kapoor. She had a calm, kind voice that immediately put Lena at ease. "I live just across the hall," Mrs. Kapoor said, noticing Lena's curious gaze at the building's old walls. "It's not much, but I love it here, full of stories and memories. If you know where to look, you must be the new neighbor. Welcome, welcome." Lena smiled shyly and nodded. She had expected to feel nervous meeting someone for the first time, but there was a gentle warmth in Mrs. Kapoor's words that made her feel right at home. As they walked together to the elevator, Mrs. Kapoor began telling Lena about the building's history, how it had been built nearly 70 years ago. Originally, as a quiet residence for teachers and librarians, she shared little secrets about hidden corners, small traditions of the residents, and the tiny library tucked behind the main stacks that no one seemed to remember. Lena listened with wide eyes. Every detail made the building feel alive, full of tiny adventures waiting to be discovered. Mrs. Kapoor laughed softly as she told stories of mischievous tenants from the past and the time a cat had sneaked into the library and refused to leave. Lena felt a spark of excitement. What if she found her own little adventures here too? By the time they reached her floor, Lena felt a light, unexpected happiness. Mrs. Kapoor waved goodbye with a promise to visit soon and maybe share more stories. Lena watched her neighbor walk down the hallway, feeling a gentle curiosity bloom inside her. It was as if meeting Mrs. Kapoor had opened a small door to the building's hidden magic. A few days later, Lena was dusting the corners of her apartment when she noticed something strange behind the old radiator. A small bundle of yellowed papers peeked out from the gap. Curious, she carefully pulled them free. The papers were letters, tied together with a faded ribbon. As she untied it, she realized the letters had never been sent. The handwriting was delicate and careful, and the dates on the top showed they were written decades ago. Lena felt a shiver of excitement. Someone had left a hidden story just waiting to be discovered. She sat cross-legged on the floor and began reading. The letters were full of small, personal thoughts, moments of longing, and little details about life in the building long ago. They spoke of friendships, quiet days spent in the library, and dreams of someone far away. Lena felt as if she was hearing the voice of someone who had lived in her own walls, someone who had loved and worried and hoped just like she did. The more she read, the more Lena felt connected to the building. Each letter revealed a little secret, a tiny piece of life frozen in time. There was even a hint of mystery, a letter that mentioned a hidden spot in the library where the writer kept something precious. Though Lena couldn't tell what, her heart beat a little faster. The building suddenly felt alive with stories, whispers, and memories. Lena looked around her small apartment, imagining the past residents walking these same floors, leaving traces of their lives behind for the first time. Lena felt she wasn't just living in an apartment. She was part of something bigger, a quiet, cozy history waiting for her to uncover, and she couldn't wait to find out what secrets were still hidden. That night, Lena curled up on her window seat with a blanket, the bundle of letters resting on her lap. The soft glow of the lamp made the edges of the papers glow warmly. She carefully opened the first letter and began reading. The words unfolded a quiet, beautiful world. Stories of a young resident named Arya, who loved drawing and dreamed of being an artist, filled the pages. Arya wrote about her friendships in the building, small adventures in the library, and the secret sketches she hid in a drawer that no one ever saw. Lena felt like she was sneaking into someone else's life, Each sentence made her imagine the old apartment halls as Arya had seen them. She could picture her footsteps echoing softly on the floors, her laughter mingling with the whispers of books in the library. Some letters hinted at a hidden talent. Arya had a gift for noticing small details others missed: sketches tucked in corners, tiny notes hidden between pages of borrowed books. Lena felt a thrill. It was like following breadcrumbs across time, night after night. Lena pieced together more of the story. Arya's dreams, her worries, the way she adored the quiet magic of the building. Lena felt herself walking alongside her through every page. Sometimes, she even paused to imagine what Arya would think of her modern apartment and her own life now. By the end of the week, Lena realized she had uncovered more than letters. She had discovered a friendship stretching across decades, a life quietly intertwined with the walls she now called home. And the thought made her heart feel light and full. The building seemed to hum softly around her, as if welcoming her into its secret history. One quiet evening, Lena brought a small notebook to the library. She felt a flutter of excitement as she opened it and began writing. Inspired by Arya's old letters, she jotted down little thoughts, small sketches, and tiny secrets about her own days. After writing a short note, she slipped it between the pages of a book on the top shelf. Her heart raced as she imagined someone finding it. She wondered if they would smile or feel the same little thrill she did the next day. Lena returned to the library and checked the same book. To her surprise, there was a reply tucked inside. Someone had written back a few simple lines about their day and a small doodle of a cat. Lena's eyes lit up. She wasn't alone in this quiet game. Encouraged, Lena continued. Each night, she left more notes in different books. Some were questions, some were short stories, some were tiny drawings, and slowly, replies began appearing. Sometimes funny, sometimes thoughtful, sometimes just a little hello, scrawled in neat handwriting. It wasn't long before Lena realized the other tenants were joining in. The building, which had always felt empty and still, was starting to hum with hidden conversations. The library became a secret place of connection, of small joys and whispered stories. Lena felt a deep warmth. It was as if the walls themselves remembered Arya's old letters and had passed the magic on through these tiny exchanges. Lena discovered a world of kindness and curiosity, a secret thread connecting people who had never met every night. As she tucked her notebook into a book and walked home, Lena's chest felt light. The quiet suspense of waiting for the next reply made her feel alive, and somehow she was. No longer just living in the apartment, she was part of a living story. One rainy afternoon, Lena wandered through the library, the soft patter of drops on the windows making the air feel warm and quiet. Her eyes wandered over the shelves, scanning familiar books. Then something caught her attention, a tiny, folded note peeking out from a worn spine. Curious, she opened it and found a small sketch of a spiral staircase. The handwriting was delicate and familiar, the same style as Arya's letters. Lena felt a shiver of excitement. Could this be another clue? She began looking more closely at the other old books. Bookmarks slipped between pages, small sketches tucked in corners, and tiny, almost hidden notes seemed to form a pattern. Each clue led her to another: a doodle of a cat, a tiny map of the library's corners, even a short poem about hidden things. Lena's heart beat faster. It felt like a treasure hunt. For hours, she followed the thread, arranging notes on the table, comparing sketches, and rereading letters. Slowly, a story began to emerge. Arya had wanted to leave behind something special, a secret that only someone curious and patient would find. Lena imagined Arya, smiling quietly, waiting for a reader to discover the trail. It felt intimate, like stepping into a world built just for her. Every clue was gentle, playful, and full of warmth. The suspense wasn't frightening, it was inviting. She couldn't stop. By evening, Lena realized the clues led to a forgotten corner of the library. A small, locked drawer hidden beneath a shelf. Her fingers tingled. What could be inside? Whatever it was, it felt important, like Arya's own heart waiting to be shared. And Lena knew she had just begun uncovering the true magic of the letters. Following the final clue, Lena's hands trembled slightly as she pushed aside a heavy, dusty bookshelf. Behind it, a narrow doorway appeared. She stepped inside and gasped. The room was small, but magical. Sunlight filtered through a high window, catching motes of dust that danced like tiny stars. Shelves lined the walls, overflowing with sketches, folded papers, old photographs, and handwritten poems. Every corner seemed alive with someone's memory. Lena moved slowly, touching the edges of sketches and flipping through yellowed papers. She saw portraits of smiling friends, quiet city streets, and cozy moments that felt frozen in time. Some papers had notes scribbled in the margins, playful jokes, and gentle thoughts. A stack of folded letters caught her eye. They were arranged neatly by date. Lena realized these were Arya's letters that had never been sent. Each one was full of dreams, observations about life, and little secrets. She felt a deep warmth in her chest. It was like meeting a kind, wise friend from another time. In one corner, a small notebook lay open. Lena picked it up and read. The words were like whispers, sharing small adventures, feelings of wonder, and tiny joys. Lena realized this hidden room wasn't just a collection of things. It was a world Arya had created to be discovered by someone patient enough to follow her trail. Lena sat on the soft rug in the middle of the room, surrounded by sketches and letters. The cozy atmosphere wrapped around her like a blanket. She felt connected to the past, to Arya, and to the secret lives hidden in ordinary places. for the first time since moving into the apartment. Lena felt completely at home. She wasn't just living in the building, she was part of a quiet, magical story that stretched across decades. The next morning, Lena couldn't stop thinking about the hidden room. She wondered if anyone else in the building knew about it. The idea made her nervous and excited at the same time. That evening, she decided to leave a note tucked inside one of the library books she often borrowed. It was simple. If you've ever felt like someone else's story should be shared, meet me by the library tomorrow evening by Lena. The next day, curiosity buzzed through the building. One by one, neighbors started quietly visiting. The library, Mrs. Kapoor, arrived first, smiling warmly. Then, a young artist, Lena, had noticed painting by the courtyard, joined. Slowly, the room began to fill with familiar faces. When Lena finally opened the hidden room for them, gasps of delight floated through the air. Sketches, photographs, and handwritten poems seemed to come alive as the tenants discovered Arya's world. People laughed softly at small jokes in the margins and whispered over heartfelt notes. Then, as Lena flipped through one last stack of letters, she noticed something strange. One letter was addressed not to anyone in the building, but to the keeper of the stories. The handwriting was different, older, almost as if Arya had known someone would continue her secret. The room went quiet. Everyone looked at Lena. She realized that Arya had left a clue for the next person. Who would care enough to keep the stories alive? A secret legacy. Lena's heart raced. Could she be the keeper? The thought sent a thrill through her in that cozy, sunlit room. Lena felt something shift. She was no longer alone in her curiosity. She had awakened a network of quiet hearts, each person connected by whispers, sketches, and stories. And maybe, just maybe, Lena's own story was about to begin within the walls of this secret, magical place. Over the next few weeks, Lena and the tenants transformed the hidden room into a small haven of stories. They pinned sketches on the walls, stacked letters neatly, and even added little cushions and lamps. The space became a secret retreat for anyone who wanted to write, read, or just feel connected. One rainy evening, Lena sat in her favorite corner, reading Arya's letters again. Suddenly, a soft knock came at the library door. She opened it to find a young woman she had never met. The woman held a worn notebook and smiled shyly. "I think Arya left this for someone like me," she said. Lena's heart fluttered. She realized that the secret had stretched beyond what she had imagined. Arya's intention wasn't just to preserve her own memories. It was to create a chain of quiet, kindred hearts. That night, the tenants gathered in the hidden room for the first story night. They shared memories, little confessions, sketches and poems. Laughter and soft applause filled the air. Lena felt a warm glow she had never known. This cozy, magical space had turned strangers into friends. As the night ended, Lena tucked a small note into one of the books on the library shelf. It read, "For the next keeper. May you find joy in quiet stories and gentle connections, stepping out into the calm night." Lena looked up at the building. She realized she was no longer just a tenant in an old apartment. She was part of a living story, a chain of laughter, curiosity, and kindness. And as she closed the door behind her, a soft breeze seemed to whisper through the library windows. The hidden room, the letters, and Arya's legacy glowed. Quietly in the heart of the building, Lena smiled. She had found her place, her people, and her story.